Welcome back to the Old Colony Cast, a podcast about all things Plymouth and surrounding areas. I am a host, Andy.
I didn't know what you were about to say.
Joined by the other host, Hanna.
Hello.
And the other host, editor.
Yep.
I mean, you're kind of hosty.
More
You're like a
producer than
hostess.
host.
He can. It's like
In like a Twinkie standpoint.
interim host,
Interim host.
occasional host,
Other guy with a microphone.
contributor,
That sounds mildly offensive.
contributor.
Why does that sound offensive?
I don't know.
Out of everything I've called you, contributor sounds offensive.
I mean, most of what you call me doesn't.
Won't
rate
make the
mildly.
show.
Yeah.
Fish.
So, yes, that's me.
Yeah.
It's him.
That's why I was interrupting on the last episode. 'Cause that's what he does. Interrupts.
It's what I do.
So,
Cool.
we covered like kind of updatey stuff
I think so.
last time.
I know. Do you have anything else?
I don't know if we've mentioned it on the show, but we're coming up on Hannah's 100th episode.
Oh
with
yeah,
us.
that's right.
Yeah.
It could be this one. I don't remember.
I know. We wanted to do a whale watch. We still can do
Yeah, we
that.
can still do.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
still
we can do
do
whale
a whale
watches
watch.
for fun.
Yeah.
You know?
It doesn't have
We
to.
can just go.
Yeah, it didn't have to
nothing-
be the 100th episode.
There's nothing stopping us.
Yeah.
We'll just call that the 100th episode. It'll be like episode 107, the 100th episode. I feel very Douglas Adamsy.
I love a good whale watch.
Yeah.
I
But-
know. We were just talking about whales too.
We were talking about a fake whale.
Yeah.
That was once a real whale.
I mean, it's a replica
It
whale.
was a replica.
Like when you say it was
See, yeah,
once.
you kept saying it.
You
it's
keep
like,
saying it was once a real whale.
sounded like you were walking
Hanna.
inside of a corpse.
At no point was that whale alive. They did not take this poor Delilah and then make an inflatable copy of her out of her.
It just felt
That's
really morbid
morbid.
to me.
It is.
And it was clearly coming through in the way I was talking about it.
It is a little bit, but I mean, it's like they made a whale and then named it after a real
Yeah, they
whale.
did.
It's not like,
they
hey,
made-
kids, come and walk around this inflatable David Bowie.
Yeah, it was so funny.
It's
I know.
not like that museum exhibit where it's like bodies that have been sealed in plastic.
No,
this is so
it's nothing
cool.
like that.
It's so cool, though.
This is not a body of. This is not the corpse of a whale.
I know.
Inflated.
I feel like
for
this
your
is a
child
good
to run
recap
through.
because I definitely like my energy about it was definitely of the bodies,
Yours was
the bodies.
Yours was a lot
Exhibit.
more morbid than I think.
And I had seen the picture, so I was just like, this is not accurate.
Look, this was a lot more morbid than inflatable whale.
I was just feeling
deserve
very
to be.
emotional about Delilah.
Walter, however, had a great time.
Because they named it. So,
Yeah, well, like Delilah existed.
I know. But,
Yeah.
you know, it's because they named it after Delilah.
Yeah, after Delilah, and it wasn't Delilah.
But it sounded like
It
you
was
thought
never
they
Delilah.
dragged their corpse around.
No,
As it rotted, they just kept reinflating it.
yeah.
I'm a little disappointed that when they deflate the whale, it doesn't all come out the blowholes, though.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that would be cool.
Like that seems like one of those things that you have to kind
Yeah.
of plan for.
That would be a
Or
cool
get
addition.
like a couple streamers and it
No,
could be
there's a big
a
like
spout.
doorway in.
Yeah.
To,
It's just not the same.
no,
It's fine.
it was cool though.
I'll allow it.
But anyway, yeah, I have some. I can't believe I've done 100 of these, or at least been a part of 100 of these, because I haven't done every single one.
No.
No, and that was like, I'm like, oh, it's 100. And Fish is like, she hasn't done every single
I've probably
one. We've had a
done
couple
93
of,
of them.
yeah.
93 of the
It's
100.
been 100 episodes that you've been part of the
90.
You're still here in spirit, even if you're not here.
Or
I
like,
don't feel like you weren't not here for me.
there's
We
been
did a
some
couple
interviews.
that you did.
But I mean,
And I just meant like
few of them
episodes
you
that
guys
we
are-
pulled out of the archives.
Yeah. Whatever.
Fine. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
2019 is when we met.
Yeah.
The end of
Yeah.
2019,
Oh
and
my
I
God, yeah.
Yeah.
I did my first episodes before COVID.
Yeah, you did your first
Yeah.
like 2 recordings before COVID, and then we weren't allowed to interact
Yeah.
for a year.
Then we did some Zoom stuff.
Yeah, we did
Yep.
Zoom for a bit.
That's where we
Crazy.
got a virtual tour of Hannah's house.
Yeah, that
Oh,
was
yeah.
funny.
And
Yeah.
the dogs.
Had to do it in my basement.
Yeah.
So welcome to the Old Colony Cast, a podcast about the Old Colony Cast.
Anyway, reminiscing. I'm just thinking back. I'm like, wow, it's been so long.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But what are we talking about today?
So you asked me a question the other day. You messaged me and
Do
asked me a
lots of
question.
things like that. I did.
You did. You were at The Stack
Oh yeah.
Shack.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. So
Okay, I was not here for any
No.
of this.
It took me a second. I had to like run things through my brain. It takes a bit. So we were doing one of our pop-up vendor markets at 3V Sandbar.
Is that what it is now?
Yeah.
Yes.
It used to be the Stack Shack. It is located behind Quarters Park. Mm-hmm. And I get questions every single time being like, what's that building used to be used for? What's that building used to be used for? And then someone's like, what's that island out there? Is that Martha's Vineyard? And I'm like, that's definitely not Martha's
Yikes.
Vineyard.
Wait,
And
who
I'm not going to
no,
say
that wasn't
who asked
I
an
wasn't
incredibly dumb question.
I wasn't asking for an actual name. It was more rhetorical. Who would look out to Plymouth Harbor and expect Martha's Vineyard?
To be fair, I don't think it's someone that lives by the ocean.
Or has seen a map.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of people, just to put in perspective, a lot of
Yeah.
people think Alaska is an island because
Because
the map
how
you
the
were
Yes.
on it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
just
yeah.
it's down by Hawaii.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh.
Everyone thinks it's so cold. It's
Yeah.
lovely.
yeah, anyway. So
So yeah. So I mean, even maps, people.
yeah, they're bad at.
Yeah, people are bad at stuff. They really are. And so they're like, "What's that island out there?" And I'm like, "I have no idea, but I know who will." And so
It was me.
Yes.
I handed the answer. It's kind of like a Google,
Yeah.
but local. And someone else looked it up, and whatever it said on the map, I'm like, that doesn't ring a bell. And then you gave the answer, and I'm like, oh, that sounds right.
What did they think it was?
It was like something point, like it was.
Oh,
I think it just seemed like
Gurnet Point.
Gurnet Point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's like part of
Thank you.
the island.
No, it's part of the Duxbury Peninsula.
Okay, all right, yeah.
The island is an island, so it's not really part of.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying. They thought the point could. You thought the point could have been part like
Like the way
off
that it
the
looked,
island.
like, you know, with the little like red circle arrow
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
It says like you are here.
It's very close.
You couldn't tell like where exactly it was pointing, so I wasn't sure.
So
Okay, so for those of us who weren't there, can someone tell me the name of the island?
it's Clark's Island.
Thank you.
The suspense was
Yeah.
killing him.
I was sitting there going like, I'm desperately trying not to Google this. Could you please reward my attempt at patience?
And can you resolve something? When something is walking distance, how do you get from point A to point B?
I mean, generally, if it's walking distance, you can walk.
Okay, thank you. She's like, oh, it's walking distance from da 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 da. We
Hannah?
used to swim there, and I'm like, wait, what?
Hannah,
yeah.
islands are only walking distance if you're either Jesus or a basilisk lizard. Are you Jesus or a basilisk
So here-
lizard?
me out.
What if you're really tall, and the water's not that deep?
It's the ocean. It's not shallow.
So it's not that deep around that island.
Yeah,
How not too deep is it?
swimming distance.
So
How tall do I have to be to walk?
you have to be
the
pretty
island?
deep because it's a channel. But
Okay, then yeah, that's
but
pretty
it's
deep,
not
Hannah.
it's not a big channel. It's not that wide.
I'm
It
almost.
was
6
just
feet
very
tall.
funny
If
the way
it's
you're like,
6
it's
feet
walking
deep-
distance. We used to swim over there, and I'm like, because I'm reading the text out loud, and I'm like, did you guys? That makes no sense.
So Clark's Island is truly that, just an island.
Yep.
It's the only island in Plymouth Bay. Some people call it Duxbury Bay. It's very close to Bug Light, or as we know, Duxbury Pier Light.
Yep.
So we've heard about that because the pier used to come out off of Duxbury Beach
Yep.
over there, and it's very close to that island.
Yes.
So people look at Clark's Island and actually don't realize it's an island because of how close it is to the peninsula of Duxbury.
And especially from where you're standing there,
Yes.
the peninsula goes behind it, so it almost looks like it's attached.
Yeah, so that is Gurnet Point
Garnet Point.
and Saquesh Beach. And Saquesh is the part that wraps around it.
Okay.
Gurnet, Saquesh.
Yeah.
Those are actually all owned by Plymouth.
Okay.
So that's part of Plymouth's land. I think there's part of the Gurnet is still Duxbury, but all of Saquesh is Plymouth, and so is Clark's Island.
Okay.
So when you're out on Saquesh has a bay, and Saquesh has a front beach.
Okay.
The bay side is where my Nana has a cottage.
Also where Screech went to high school.
That sounds really hoity-toity. This is not that type of place. It's like the size of this room. And
Massive then.
yeah. The whole thing. And it's like open concept beach cottage.
Yeah.
That they've owned since like 78.
It cost them like $9 or something.
It cost a good decent chunk of money, but it's raised. It's on those pillars.
Oh, sure, yeah,
because the water comes in off the bay.
Yeah.
And it's a beach community. It's private, but you can go out there sometimes now. It used to be like really strict, and now it's not as strict. And you can boat there if you have a boat.
Okay.
My Nana's house faces Clark's Island, and as I told you, was quote unquote walking distance.
Yes.
So when the bay is at low tide, there's no water in the bay. I don't mean some.
There's none.
There's none.
Okay.
The only water left at its lowest tide is the channel.
Okay.
The channel is maybe 10 feet wide.
Okay.
And then after the channel is like couple yards, and then you're at Clark's Island.
Okay.
So no, technically you're not walking the whole way.
Welcome to the episode where Hannah defends what she said because Andy made fun of her.
But Clark's Island, different from Saquesh, where Saquesh has access. You need to have a sticker or permission, or like I said, you can boat onto it.
Yeah.
Clark's Island is not like that. It's private.
Okay.
Now, the lore that I know growing up, because I stared at this
I thought
island.
you were going to say the Lord.
No.
The Lord.
The Lord of Clark's Island.
No, the lore that I know from growing up and staring at this island for so long is that no one's allowed over there.
Yeah.
There's also like my Nana's house is very much seasonal cottage.
Mm-hmm.
Full year-round homes are on that
Okay.
island, and people live there full time too.
Yeah.
Not everyone, but some people. Or they at least have the ability to. I'm sure they're all rich enough to not live there year-round.
Yeah.
Making a broad assumption at them.
I mean,
but
I'm
that's
looking
fine.
at satellite views of some of these houses. Yeah.
They're big.
That's a lot of patio.
So, beautiful views too. It's beach, like you're just bay views the whole way around.
Yeah.
It's very nice. It's not a super big island.
No, you figure
It's-
walk across it?
Yeah.
Walk across it.
Very easily.
Like 20 minutes? Like
I feel like not even depending on which way you're coming from. But we would like rowboat kind of near it, and my Nana would tell us about it, and she said it's only one day a year they allow the public onto that land.
Boxing Day.
Yeah, on Boxing Day, which is not necessarily untrue. But there's a reason why it's one day a year. So there's the Duxbury Rural Historical Society.
Yep.
And they were... Let me find this. Sorry. School of American Studies. Hold on. So it was donated to that society I just named in 1969 from the Plymouth Rock Foundation. Each year they have a day honoring one of like the original like holders of land, or at least someone who came from the first colonizers of it, honestly. Like
Clark
yeah,
himself?
No. So they have a day that honors one of the families in holding on that island, and one of the people from it specifically, because she was so committed to higher education in some way, shape, or form. And that one day they have a picnic at a specific location there, and that's like the one public day. However, there's public lands there, and it's owned by the Duxbury Rural and Historical Society.
Okay.
And it's just for conservation. And there's 17 acres of it. But I'm going to tell you about Clark's Island a little bit from the jump. Do you remember talking about Clark's Island at all when we talked about the Pilgrim's Landing?
I talk about a lot of things to a lot of people, and I vaguely remember.
I remember there being is this have to do with a shipwreck?
Kind of.
I remember there being like people stranded on the island.
A little bit. They were slightly stranded.
and they're still there.
I mean,
No.
50-50, but probably not.
So there's so we'll talk about when the European history of that island started. Obviously, the Pilgrims came in 1620, so December of 1620, 18 Pilgrims rowing in their shallop went up Plymouth Bay from where they were off Race Point Beach in P-Town, looking for somewhere to settle.
Okay, I remember that.
They saw Clark's Island. I talked about it super briefly, and they were like, that might be the spot.
Is that where they landed and raided the natives'
No.
food stores? Okay.
That was actually walking distance.
Walking distance by boat.
Walking.
Well, if you're on the boat, you can just walk on the boat.
I was at walkable distance or walk.
You know, as the crow swims.
Yeah. So that was more in P-Town. Anyway, or off on the Cape somewhere.
On Cape.
Yeah. They might have boated to it.
It's probably faster.
Yeah. It wasn't on an island. Anyway.
Yeah. Got it.
No, they went ashore. One of the people on the boat was, is it John Clark? Yeah, John Clark. He was the first mate on the Mayflower.
Okay.
So he was there, and they were like, we should set up here. Very good thing they didn't. There would have been very limited on what they were able to do there, and like hunting.
Sure.
Would not.
It's pretty small.
It's not a big island.
Yes, exactly.
It's maybe
Or they
half
would have been
mile.
like going back and forth quite a bit, right? So, and as we know, someone already knew of the area of Plymouth
Yeah.
because it had been touched by European colonists before.
Right.
And devastated the indigenous
Which is
people.
why everyone was dead.
Yep.
yeah.
So therefore, there was open opportunity in Plymouth. That's what they were going for. So when they got to Clark's Island, someone thought it was a cool idea, but then they ultimately decided against it. One of the things that kept them on the island was their mast had broken on the shallop. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of stormy. So this is where the shipwreck thing comes in. But it was the day before they had to observe the Sabbath, and they can't work on the Sabbath.
So they just hung out there.
So they hung out and they decided to take worship there. So what they did was
Now this sounds familiar.
they looked for a place on the island to have a service. And they found Election Rock or Pulpit Rock. I'm shocked I haven't talked about this rock before.
Okay.
It's huge.
Look, I'm sorry. This is Plymouth. We only have mental
one
space
rock
for
in this
one
town.
rock.
Well, I've talked a lot about rocks. This is this is like a rock that should be on the list. It's massive. If any rock should technically be Plymouth Rock for tourist reasons, it's
that
this
one?
one. It's
Yeah.
Undoubtedly. This is what people expect.
I feel like the
We
one
have
on
a lot of kind of noteworthy rocks.
we
Yeah.
do. This
This is
is
Flag Rock,
yep.
and then Plymouth Rock, Pulpit Rock, Dighton,
Profile rock.
Profile Rock.
Anawan Rock, I think.
There's another
Yacht
rock.
Rock.
Oh, Sacrifice Rock.
I don't know that one.
Oh, I'll
That's
have to do
in
an episode.
Freetown, right?
No, it's in Manamet.
Oh, it's okay.
Cedarville, Manamet.
Oh, okay.
I'll do an episode on it for you guys.
Okay. Add it to the list.
I love talking about rocks. So, they elected to hold service where they found this rock.
Okay.
So it's called Election Rock or Pulpit
Pulpit.
Rock.
Probably
Okay.
makes more sense.
Yes.
Yeah. Election Rock implies more than just
Seems governmental.
it seems more.
So that's where the lore is, and I was told this by my Nana, that they had their first service ashore there. They had already been in the area for a bit.
But they're like, oh, we're gonna go back to the boat for service, that kind of thing. This is like
Well, and if you recall, the families
yeah.
and all they stayed on the boat for quite a while in like where they were in the bay.
Yeah.
Because it was wintertime.
Yeah.
And it was like a crazy winter for them to arrive. So probably none of the families held service, but you have to think there were like what they're doing, going out and searching for places.
Yeah.
They had those little parties leave to go explore from the moment they landed. So I have to imagine that they held a service
Right.
on P-Town too.
Yeah.
So beyond that, that's just my own feeling about it because I'm like, it's impossible. These are literally like Puritans. They like had to.
They have to do their
Yes, exactly.
It's not something they can duck out on.
Right. So, but either way, that happened. So it was. We're going to shoot forward in history now because they moved right along as soon as they finished.
Yeah.
They were able to work on their boat. Owned by Plymouth Colony, and in 1690, it was sold to different families who just wanted the land. And a lot of them were, I shouldn't say a lot, but some of them were there for like hundreds of years.
Yeah.
One of those like, we've been here since the beginning of the colony. Yeah. So one of the names that stands out was Sarah Wingate Taylor. So she directed a school that was on that island.
Oh, okay.
It was Plymouth Rock School of American Studies.
It's a big title for probably a very small school.
Yes, it probably was. And it was, so it had, like, I said higher education before.
Yeah.
But it's even like, I don't even know if it's higher education or more so like, let's just get like the great minds, the philosophical minds here and like teach.
Yeah.
Right? Like that kind of a thing. I could be making that up. And mind you, it sounds like this Duxbury Rural and Historical Society is very much in tune with this woman's life. So I'm sure they're going to be like, that's not it at all. But either way, they had some
They can come on the show.
Yes, and tell us about her, please. Yeah. So Henry David Thoreau was one of the
heard of him
visitors there. Louisa May Alcott.
Yep.
Heard her. Truman Capote.
Also, heard of him.
Yeah. All had visited.
Interesting.
So I talked about how Duxbury Rural and Historical Society owns 17 acres, including the Pulpit Rock area. That has like a memorial type of feel now. I believe there's an engraving in the rock just like commemorating that was the area that stop had happened on, or they were hunkered down for and took service there. The property called Cedar Field, it was built in 1836. It's the second oldest house, and it was donated, part of that same donation by Plymouth Rock Foundation, and it's part of the Sarah Wingate Taylor estate.
I know that name. Why do I know that name? Oh, no. What was... Nope, never mind.
Okay. You're like,
Scratch
no.
that.
You're like, no, I know her.
She's a school teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I know her. No.
Yeah. It's like, Hanna mentioned her like
when she said
2
it,
minutes ago.
I know. When she said it, I was like, where do I know that girl from? And then you said that she was the school.
It sounds very familiar either way.
Yeah.
So I bet there's like...
She's got to be connected.
Mentions of her and stuff that we've come across before. Each day, like I said, they have a little day like kind of honoring her and an appreciation for what she contributed to education, the arts, and it includes a lecture series and a picnic.
Okay.
So this ding, ding, ding leads back to what I know to be true, which is the one public day that people are allowed there. And and my Nana always said, and you go and have a picnic. You can get, it's not the one day that it's public. Anyone's allowed there. That is just a more notable...
That's what your Nana was saying, so she didn't have to row you to
this
island
it's a more notable event.
That's the day.
That's a little bit more acceptable and easier to figure out how to get on. Mm-hmm. The Historical Society does own, I believe, a boat ramp and has part of that 17 acres also is like an eastern and a western side, likely ways to get on the island.
Okay.
I also don't know if you just have to, if you like have to get permission from them to go do it, but aside from that, everyone's property is water facing for the most part.
That's crazy.
So if you're trying to land on that island,
you're landing on someone's property.
You're trespassing, so you can't. I've heard of, I don't think they're like rude people. I've heard of people who are like going by and they're like, oh, like kayaking. Yeah. And they're like, oh, like if they see an owner out on the shore. Yeah. They're like, yeah, you can dock here. Like that kind of thing. So, and there's plenty of public space to go explore that aren't on people's property there. You just like have to be
Courteous.
Yeah, courteous, but like pointed in the right direction, you know?
Yeah.
So, now darker side of Clark's Island.
Dun, dun, dun.
Did you see that coming?
No.
I mean,
No.
it's been a while since Hannah had a murder episode, so not stunned.
I'm not going to say
human
this is
sacrifice.
a murder.
Manslaughter?
It's just like
Death by misadventure?
inappropriate and definitely has to do with murder, but specifically what I'm saying is not murder.
Mad scientist.
So 1675 to 1676, Clark's Island was actually used as an internment camp for some local indigenous people
Oh, fantastic.
Oh,
yes. because it fell in line with Metacomet's War.
Uh,
So the residents of Plymouth actually came to a town meeting because they were nervous of an insurrection of some of the local indigenous people that were still living in the area. They were voted to have them put into an internment camp because they were scared at the thought, even though there was very little evidence at the time that that would ever happen.
It's what we do.
Yes.
Yep.
So they were gathered and forced to live on the island for a year.
Fantastic.
Yes. Whether it was like truly a year or
Yeah.
whatever, that's
Really not the point.
no, exactly. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that I just talked about the European history of Clark's Island. While there's no mention of anyone necessarily living there prior to that,
Yeah.
I would highly doubt that it was not utilized
Oh, I'm
by
sure.
by whoever lived here previous
It's
to the
obviously
Pilgrims.
accessible by kayak.
Yes.
So I'm sure they
Yeah.
could get there by canoe. and-
Exactly.
I mean, it's walking distance from the land,
Yeah.
Andy.
It is. I still stand by that. So,
She stands by that. In water, she stands
yeah.
So really, she more like treads
neck
water in
deep.
it. Yeah.
A little bit as far as like current time Clark's Island,
Yeah.
something that goes on in Saquosh Bay is what's that? The like, I don't want to say famous, but prominently used oyster company.
Oh, crap. Why'd you have to do that? I feel like I know who you're talking about. But
Yeah, we see
I
the
know.
trucks everywhere.
Yeah. Those guys.
They're in that bay. Like that's
Oh,
where their
okay.
oyster farm is.
Oh, is that that's where the Duxbury oysters come from?
Probably. There's other oyster farms, but yes, that
Yeah.
is like from the I forget the name of it now.
Yeah.
It's like Duxbury Bay oyster. I don't know.
Probably something.
So stupid. I
Yeah.
can't think of it right now. It's been featured on a random show that I watched, and I was like, I know exactly where that is.
Okay.
What random show?
It's it was like a Brad Leone spinoff. It's Alive. It might be It's Alive. Do you know who that is?
No.
Nope.
Yeah, it's from America's Test Kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah. But not America's Test. The
Yeah.
show was not that. It was like a spinoff
yeah.
of that. But anyway,
Interesting.
yeah, and for anyone interested in going to Clark's Island, it's not super easy,
But it's doable.
but it's doable. And probably my best advice is to hook up with the Duxbury Rural and Historical Society and see when that day is,
Now I
because
want
it
to make friends
seems
with people who live out there.
yeah, they're the people to be friends with.
Yeah.
I would also like wealthy friends.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what's the.
It's like, do you own a private island? I own like
mean, not
1/20th of a private island.
Like, I
I
own
feel like that's
enough of one to live on.
But yeah,
My helicopter
it's
can
a
land
very
there.
pretty. I mean, I think Plymouth Bay is
Oh, it's
notably
cool, yeah.
very
Oh,
gorgeous.
it's very scenic.
Yeah. It's cool when you get closer to it on like any whale watch show. You can see that you could see the island actually
Yeah.
for what it is. But you're right, from the view from in North Plymouth, it looks like it's all kind of
like we weren't even sure if there were structures on it. Like,
Yeah.
it's like-
Yeah.
And to be fair, it was foggy,
yeah.
like crazy. You could barely see the end of that big long like pier
Yeah.
building. So
Cool.
It was a creepy morning.
I don't know.
Spooky
Every
morning.
once in a while, Plymouth just gets real foggy.
Yeah,
It was
I like
very
it.
weird that day.
Yeah.
Because like I pulled up and I'm like, oh, fantastic! You can't see anything.
Yeah.
And then it started to clear up,
It
as the sun
burns
came
off.
out.
Yeah.
and then immediately got way worse. So it's like you could see Clark's Island, and then you couldn't see the end of the pier. And I was like, what is going on? It's so strange. But yeah,
I know. Well, that wasn't on the list either, as far as episodes we talked about.
but that was very topical to us
exactly.
anyways.
Yes, I was like, good idea, Andy. I will explain this to people. And I think as far as information out there, like I said, I know that
the Duxbury source.
They champion Sarah Wincott Taylor, whatever her name is, pretty hard. And I know just reading a couple other things, there's a few more details about it like you could get into, but just wanted to give people some broad brush strokes about
are there any famous people I'm just curious, like
Henry David Thoreau.
Like who would own a house now?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think so. No. It's so like local.
Yeah. It is.
You know what I mean?
One of those weird, like they're like, oh my God, can you imagine having to go grocery shopping? I'm like, I bet you those people don't do their own grocery shopping.
Yeah. Look, I'm sure they
but Grubhub will be real difficult.
Yeah.
It's like DoorDash. Who has DoorDash in a jet ski?
Yeah.
So.
It's cool. It's a nice place.
But you did mention Whale Watch.
Yes.
We're talking about doing a Whale Watch Old Colony Cast style.
Yeah.
So, listeners, if you want to go take a short walk with us to see some whales,
Just hike out to George's Bank. And I got to say, I don't think George's Bank is walking distance.
No, that's why you said hike.
Yeah, it's
Hike implies.
hike
long
implies.
There's
yeah.
sometimes that we could definitely get out to why can't I think of the name? Browns Bank.
I've never been on Browns Bank.
I've only been a couple of times.
Yeah, and they always had that big party, and I always want to go.
Yeah. I would go probably any other day. It's not that big.
No, but it's just like, it just seems like
It's a cool vibe.
it seems like one of the things you want to do like one time.
Yeah.
It's I've done it.
It is a cool vibe.
Yeah.
But there are days you can walk out there, but you have to go all the way to the end of Long Beach and then get out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
You might have to walk through some water though.
Walking through water.
Yeah, that's fine.
But if you begin to float at any point, it's no longer walking.
Yeah, once you don't have your feet on the ground, that is what we here at the Old Colony Cast called swimming.
Some might.
Yeah. So I guess this is the spot where we stop walking. And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. Thanks again for listening.